The Biden administration's continued response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
The IMT's uplifting prediction for the U.S. economy.
And the end of an internet giant.
Broadcasting live from the University of North Texas, this is ntTV News at Noon.
Thanks for joining us on ntTV News at Noon. I'm Trevor Newell.
And I'm Jocelyn Lassiter. COVID-19 is still a threat in the United States, and we are still living in a pandemic. Variants of the virus continue to spread as the spread of these new variants keep popping up. All 50 states will expand COVID-19 vaccine eligibility to everyone 16 years and older by May 1st. CNN's Britt Conway has the story.
From production to packaging to planes to the pavement and to the people.
Okay, here we go.
The COVID-19 vaccine rollout is going strong, with every state announcing plans to expand vaccine eligibility to people 16 years and older, if they haven't already. But Dr. Ashish Jha, epidemiologist Michael Osterholm, and Dr. Paul Offit worry it's creating false hope. Average new case counts are up more than 16% these past 2 weeks, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says part of the reason for the rise is because of variants like the one first spotted in the UK.
It's not long before it's going to sweep across the country.
And the variants make it particularly concerning.
That's because there are still so many questions about the variants.
To date, we don't know that these variants have completely escaped immunity, where, for example, if you've been naturally infected or immunized, you still may be hospitalized or be in an ICU or die.
And there are other variants popping up, like the one first identified in India that's also been reported in California, not to mention the variants still to come as viruses mutate over time.
Where will these new variants come from that we couldn't even imagine today?
Still, they all agree vaccinations are our best bet.
Either get vaccinated, or if we haven't had a chance to get a vaccine yet, at least wear a mask and social distance.
So we really do have to hunker down for a few more weeks.
I'm Britt Conway reporting.
The U.S. has now passed more than 150 million vaccinations out of the 200 million goal. President Biden is planning to announce that every adult will be eligible for a COVID-19 vaccine by April 19th. 2 weeks earlier than the original deadline of May 1st. It is unclear how this announcement will affect Oregon, South Dakota, Nebraska, Hawaii, and New Jersey, who have announced that on May 1st, all adults will be eligible. The president will give his remark after his visit to Virginia vaccination site today.
The U.S. economy is on track to grow at its fastest pace since 1984. That's the latest prediction from the International Monetary Fund. The IMF reported that it expects economic growth to reach 6.4% this year. That's 1 percentage point more than the IMF's prediction in January. And it means the economy will actually be doing better than it did before the pandemic. The IMF points to President Biden's nearly $2 trillion stimulus package as an economic boost for the nation. The financial group says it's already seeing signs that the U.S. recovery is gaining speed. Last month, the U.S. saw its biggest job gain since August, and an economic indicator for manufacturing in the U.S. recently posted its best reading since 1983.
Well, Jocelyn, it was certainly cloudy on my way to work this morning.
Oh, it definitely was, and I wasn't sure if I was going to have to bring out my umbrella today, but let's pitch it over to our weather anchor, Hannah Gonzalez, with our weather update.
Well, Jocelyn, I'm not too concerned about the rain today, but it's the wind that we should worry about. Right now, their wind advisory is in effect starting at noon today through midnight. But let's look at the current conditions in Denton. You can see we're sitting at 74 degrees. Feels about the same with 13 miles per hour coming from the southeast. Now, moving into tonight's conditions, we can see that wind will just pick up at 22 miles per hour coming from the south, but still warm temperatures sitting at 80 degrees. Now, moving into tomorrow's conditions, we will still see partly cloudy skies, but it'll still be another warm day at 78 degrees and feels the same. Now, make sure you stay tuned later on in the show when I break down the 7-day forecast. But for now, Trevor, back to you.
Thanks, Hannah. Barack Obama's former FDA Commissioner Robert Califf says the country could see a rise in a different disease once the pandemic comes to an end. Tuesday, Califf wrote in an American Heart Association journal that chronic disease such as diabetes will be the next big health issue the U.S. is likely to face. an issue that many citizens were already dealing with prior to the pandemic. Califf also noted that these deaths added to the deaths of the coronavirus could see results in noticeable steep in the average life expectancy by as much as 3 years. The Capitol police officer killed in last week's attack at the building will lie in honor at the Capitol's rotunda next week. Friday, Officer William Evans died after a man rammed a vehicle into a Capitol barricade. Nancy Pelosi ordered Capitol flags to be flown at half-staff in his honor. Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer called Evans a martyr for our democracy. Lying in honor at the Capitol is the civilian equivalent of lying in state, which is reserved only for government and military officials. The honor was last given to Brian Sicknick, the Capitol police officer killed in January's riot. He will receive the same honor as Billy Graham and Rosa Parks.
The chief of police in Minneapolis took the stand yesterday in the trial of Derek Chauvin. Daryl Forges is in Minneapolis with the latest.
Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin on trial.
That,
In opening statements
word.
Monday, the prosecution laying out a corrected timeline of events they say led to the death of 46-year-old George Floyd last May, when Chauvin knelt on the back of Floyd's neck.
What happened in those 9 minutes and 29 seconds when Mr. Derek Chauvin was applying this excessive force to the body of Mr. George Floyd?
Arguing Chauvin betrayed his badge.
That there was a duty to have administered care, to let up and get up.
In the first witness testimony, a 911 dispatcher says she called a police sergeant to voice her concerns about what she saw in a surveillance camera.
My instincts were telling me that something's wrong.
The defense contends Chauvin was following his training and Minneapolis police protocol.
The use of force is not attractive, but it is a necessary component of policing.
Chauvin's attorney also seeking to establish doubt over the precise cause of death.
Mr. Floyd died of a cardiac arrhythmia that occurred as a result of hypertension, his coronary disease, the ingestion of methamphetamine and fentanyl, and the adrenaline flowing through his body.
An autopsy says he died of heart failure during restraint. As sunset on the first day of the trial, protesters in the streets echoing a refrain heard around the world last summer. In Minneapolis, I'm Daryl Forges.
We will keep you updated as the trial continues through the coming weeks. Coming up, we have information on Greg Abbott's new executive order.
And Texas's new COVID numbers. Stick around.
It's that time of year where everyone plays a dangerous game with the flu. Going in uneducated, you run the risk of symptoms like cough, migraine, and fatigue. Don't be like this guy. Combat the flu with cough drops, ibuprofen, and a good night's sleep. Be smart, don't catch the flu.
The STAR test has been canceled today due to technical difficulties with the online version of the test. The test was supposed to be administered in person and online, but students have been unable to complete their test because the online portal crashed. Even with the online issue, students taking the paper version still have to finish their test. Bloomsburg ISD Superintendent Brian Stroman said, quote, "We've done everything right. We're ready. They weren't. TEA dropped the ball. An investigation is underway and the Education Testing Service is currently working to resolve the issue. We'll keep you updated as more information is released."
Governor Greg Abbott signed an executive order yesterday that would stop local governments from requiring vaccine passports. The order does not apply to places similar to nursing homes and state-assisted living centers where residents must provide proof of vaccination. Vaccine passports have become a hot topic in politics as lawmakers debate what to do as far as safety measures across the country are concerned.
Texas reported the lowest number of COVID cases in the state since June 2020. Officials reported less than 1,000 new COVID cases yesterday, just a week after the state opened vaccine eligibility for all Texans over the age of 16. COVID-related deaths and hospitalizations have been declining since January, even with the reopening of Texas businesses in early March. However, on the flip side of this, the city of Garland has temporarily frozen their vaccine registrations after a high volume of no-shows. The city says there is probably due to people going and getting their vaccine from other sites and then forgetting to take their name off the Garland wait list. Despite this, the city is planning a mass vaccination event on Wednesday, April 7th. Educators were already feeling overlooked by their state government when they weren't included in the initial vaccine rollouts. Well, now that feeling has only grown since the announcement that the state omitted $18 billion in funds meant to help students recover from the pandemic. The funds are meant to be received in 3 packages, and apparently the first one was used to support the existing budget, barely leaving anything for schools. At least 40 states have released some kind of guidance on how the money will be distributed. But Texas is one of the few who has not taken steps to allocate the second or third COVID-19 education relief packages. Lawmakers are saying this is due to the strings that are attached to the money before Texas can accept it. The 2 provisions in question attached to the money, one requires states to keep their education funding at or above pre-pandemic levels, and the other is to ensure state cuts don't disproportionately impact high-need students. What this means is Texas has to spend about $1.2 billion in order to maintain their education funding at what it was pre-pandemic before they are able to access the $18 billion. This obviously raising concern among educators and officials alike, but Texas is working diligently to hopefully get that federal funding to schools before the session ends.
Now, Jocelyn, I know you strongly dislike the rain, but something tells me it won't be here for the rest of the week.
You're right about that. Me and rain do not mix. And while I'm at it, I actually looked at my Apple app because they did not make it for nothing. And it showed that it was in the 80s. Now, when I pass it over to my weather anchor, Hannah Gonzalez, she better be on my side. Well, Hannah.
I'm always on your side, Jocelyn, but if you're just tuning in, we can see Denton is sitting at 74 degrees, along with Bowie and Gainesville. If we zoom out and look at our state map, we can see Austin is at 79, along with El Paso. Houston, about the same at 78. Now let's move into our 7-day forecast. We can see today, partly cloudy skies with a high of 87, low of 58. Then moving into Thursday, the sun will peak out with a high of 87, low of 63. Friday, we will see a 30% chance of showers, but still warm temperatures with a high of 85, low 53. But then for the weekend, the sun will just come out to us. We'll have a beautiful weekend with a high of 86, low 55 on Saturday. And then starting our work week on Monday, we will see that 20% chance of rain again and a 75% cloud cover with high of 83. That's all I have for weather today. Back to y'all at the desk.
Thanks, Hannah. Denton City Council offered their positions in regards to diversity in both the police and fire departments during a forum yesterday. The event was hosted by the Denton County NAACP president of the organization, Willie Hudspeth. The father of Mayor Gerard Hudspeth focused his attention on public safety and questioned leaders on how they both departments chiefs will lead their departments. Willie Hudspeth also called for diversity in both departments, saying they needed to employ more minority first responders, with some experts experts calling the hiring process a blind hiring process during initial screening. The last item Hudspeth's address was centered around that candidates should be looking for in their next city manager. As of now, Sarah Hensley remains the interim city manager after Todd Howman left for California. Leaders said their focus will be to find someone transparent who comes with experience in running a city as big as Denton.
The city of Denton will also need to look for a new president for the Chamber of Commerce. Erica Panberg is stepping down from her role as president this week. The decision comes as no surprise to the chamber, as this has been in the works for several months. And that Panberg wanted to make sure the transition was smooth. She said, quote, "The business community is starting to reemerge and start to the recovery cycle. The chamber has also undergone quite a bit of transition in the last 2 years, but they're also in a very stable and steady place right now." Panberg has held the title since 2019 and says her last day will be tomorrow. Vice President Pam Marufo will step in as the interim president.
An unfortunate tragedy occurred in a local city yesterday.
Our own Michaela Goose is here to give us the full story on the incident. Michaela?
Thanks, y'all. 6 family members were found dead in Allen, Texas early Monday morning. Officers arrived at a home on Pine Bluff to perform a welfare check at around 1 a.m. after receiving calls about a suicidal young man living at the residence. Officers on scene discovered the bodies of Father Tawhid Islam, Mother Irene Islam, Grandmother Altafune Nessa, Tanvir, and Farhan Tawhid. A family friend confirmed that the brothers Farhan and Farbin Tawhid made a murder-suicide pact. The brothers posted the link to a lengthy letter detailing the crime on their Instagram. In the letter, the brothers said they both suffer from clinical depression and wanted to save their family members from experiencing their suicide by killing the family before they killed themselves. Friends of the family stress that this immense tragedy does not reflect on the Muslim Bangladeshi culture or the boys they knew. Police are not releasing much else at this time, but we will keep you updated as the investigation continues. Back to you at the desk.
Thanks, Michaela. We will have them in our thoughts. The driver of a stolen ambulance, Felix Lopez, was finally captured after he led officers on a 2-hour chase yesterday afternoon. The ambulance was taken from a fire station and on 53 Monday morning and was spotted in the early afternoon where the chase ensued. Lopez intentionally drove into oncoming traffic, but luckily no crashes have been reported in connection with the chase. The ambulance reported bottomed out a curb and got stuck, causing Lopez to quickly bail and attempt to escape. The police on foot. This proved rather difficult as he had to hold up his falling pants. Moments later, he was cornered in a fenced-in area and was taken into custody. Well, maybe next time he'll remember to wear a belt if he's planning on running from the law. After the break, we have a story about a special garden in Fort Worth.
Plus news of a popular Q&A platform that is shutting down. Stick around.
When you park in front of the ramp, somebody can't make it up the ramp. When somebody can't make it up the ramp, they miss their class. When they miss their class, they fail their final. When they fail their final, they drop out of school. If you drop out of school, you get a face tattoo from a guy named Scorpion. Don't get a face tattoo from a guy named Scorpion. Be courteous. Don't block wheelchair ramps.
So Jocelyn, I have a question for you. Have you ever been to a Japanese garden before?
No, I can't say that I have, but our segment anchor, Kevin Pacheco, can tell us where to find one. One of the longest serving Q&A platforms on the internet is shutting down. Yahoo Answers announced the platform will be closing on April 20th, where it will then enter into a Q&A read-only mode. Users will be able to save and download any content from the site until June 30th. Verizon, the owner of Yahoo, announced they are shifting resources from certain Yahoo features in order to create a new subscription-based service using the Yahoo name.
Oh my gosh, Jocelyn, did you see March Madness last night?
I definitely did, and I was rooting for Baylor, and I can't believe they won. Let's pitch it over to our sports anchor, Shaji Adam. So, Shaji, did you see the game last night?
Of course I did. It was amazing. If you think I'm excited, check out these Baylor fans celebrating the school's first ever NCAA basketball champion. See, I'm so excited, even we're having technical difficulties right now, but COVID has really affected the sports world, and to see these fans go crazy and to see that emotion makes you forget our sports problems. Now, Jocelyn, the real question I have to ask is, how quickly was your bracket busted?
Oh yeah, my bracket was definitely busted a long time ago. However, I did have Baylor in my Final Four, yet people were giving me the stink eye when I did, but you see, they proved them wrong. What about you, Trevor?
Mine got busted the first round. I really thought, honestly, I thought Gonzaga was going to take it all, but I'm glad. I'm happy for the Baylor fans, so.
Well, Trevor, it's okay to be wrong. I had the mean green going all the way, so, maybe next season. Well, there were 68 teams, and then the madness started. We saw surprise victories, crushing defeats, and iconic moments. However, there was only one team who could say that they are champions. I'll go over Baylor versus Gonzaga when we come back.
It's that time of year where everyone plays a dangerous game with the flu. Going in uneducated, you run the risk of symptoms like cough, migraine, and fatigue. Don't be like this guy. Combat the flu with cough drops, ibuprofen, and a good night's sleep. Be smart, don't catch the flu.
UNT is more than 125 years in the making. To find new solutions, we create a new point of view. We know what's possible when creativity, originality, and independent thought converge. We're ranked a Tier 1 research university. We're home to excellence the size of Texas. Define your future at UNT and soar to new heights.
Last night in the NCAA basketball championship, Gonzaga and Baylor weren't just looking to win, they were also trying to make history. Besides UCLA, Gonzaga had been steamrolling the competition, and no one had an answer for their offense until now. The entire game, the Bears were all over the Bulldogs, only letting them shoot 5 of 17 from beyond the arc. This would also reflect on the scoreboard as Baylor led by 19 at the end of the first half and never looked back in an 86-70 win. This Baylor team, led by head coach Scott Drew, have cemented their legacy as the first Baylor basketball team to win the national championship. With Gonzaga's loss, the quest for another undefeated team to win the championship continues. When the pandemic first hit, thinking of having fans at full capacity felt like a world from another time. Well, opening day at Globe Life Field brought back over 40,000 fans at full capacity to witness the Rangers' first game in their home stadium this season. This came off the news that Governor Greg Abbott declined to throw the first pitch after Major League Baseball's decision to move the All-Star game out of Georgia due to the new voting law. Although it was a sight to see, the first full capacity crowd since the pandemic began over a year ago, what we saw on the field was not. The Rangers ended up on the short end of the stick in a 6-2 loss against the Blue Jays. Texas is now 1-3 on the season, but hey, that stadium is still incredible. The North Texas men's golf team are currently participating in the Bayou City Collegiate Classic. Currently, the Mean Greens sit at 8th place with 6 over par after having scores of 287 and 295. Leading the way for North Texas is junior Lenny Bergson, who shot a 70 and a 73, and freshman Vincente Marcilio. The tournament will finish up today as they still are currently playing in Houston. Well, that's all I have, but let's go back to Kevin Pacheco to tell us about that beautiful botanical garden.
I think you have the kicker.
The Fort Worth Botanical Garden is home to various plant species that can be found within the Rose Garden, Japanese Garden, and other areas.
Okay, that's my
This
question.
110-acre garden was established in 1934 and is the oldest major botanic garden in Texas. Visitors from different parts of Texas or even other states come visit the garden for its beautiful colors and soothing environment. Visitors usually share a common favorite within the garden.
Well, you know, the whole thing is very interesting. I think the Japanese garden was pretty cool. It was just very unique. My wife is into gardening, and she found a lot of species that she's familiar with and a lot that she's not. So it was really kind of interesting.
Different plant species, such as the Japanese maple, are brought to the garden from different areas of the world. The garden is always changing colors with the seasons, so visitors never have to worry about missing out on the visuals. Though plants are the garden's main attraction, the landscape and designs also appeal to visitors.
I think the rose garden, even though the roses weren't in bloom, I think just the landscaping itself is just incredible.
The garden is open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Adult admission is $12 per person and parking is also included. Events such as weddings or using the garden as a background for photo shoots will cost extra. Be sure to visit their website at fwbg.org to find out more information.
Wow, Jocelyn, those flowers are so beautiful. I can't imagine being there and being able to see, you know, all of that. It's really cool.
Awesome. It's so crazy that I've actually seen the Japanese maple flowers in person before. So it's really nice to see that you can actually go somewhere to experience that incredible beauty. So
thanks for watching ntTV News at Noon.
Join us again tonight at 6 here on North Texas Television.
Just crosstalk immediately.